Hello everyone and welcome on The Papier de Rêves channel. I'm Ursula and today I will be repainting with you a painting I did 2 years ago. I've created this YouTube channel 2 years ago because I wanted to share my love for watercolor painting and also to see how I have improved over the years. So the 2-year marks is quite interesting and I'm quite eager to see what I'm capable to paint right now with the same subject. And the fact to have a YouTube channel and making videos every week is quite challenging, but it's also very interesting because I'm painting really every week and I cannot pass 1 week. I have missed several weeks, I think, during these 2 years, but really not much. So my subject today is some asters. It's a really beautiful plant with violet flowers, and I love them because it's the embodiment of summer for me. And I can find them all over the place at my parents' garden. If you want to see my first video about this subject, I will put the link in the little information box on the right top corner, and you will be able to see it. So I've started this painting very loosely, like I love to do so, and I've started with some violets. I'm using today Cobalt violet and Lavender. I like to use 2 types of violets so that I can have some rhythm in the violet and it's not really the same color all over the place. And I'm not using Carbazole violet today just because Cobalt violet has more texture to it as it's a granulating color, and Carbazole violet can be a little bit too powerful sometimes. And without waiting my violet to dry, I've put a little bit of green here and there to have a first idea of the greenery around those flowers. And I like to mix my color when they are still wet, so that everything is very loose and flow together and merge together. It's a really nice way to start a background. And for the last step of this first layer, I added a little bit more violet, but as my paper wasn't as wet as at the beginning, the violet didn't merge too much with the other colors, and I have a first idea of my flowers this way. Everything is soft, but a little bit defined still. And now I'm starting the second layer, which was quite a bold move to make, and I'm not very used to do such things, but I really enjoy it and I think it was the right move to make at this stage of the painting. So I added very dark blue colors around my flowers in order to make them pop a little bit more against this dark background, and have a little bit of an idea of the transparency of the petals. It can be a little bit tricky to apply such darker colors, and you have to work a little bit fast so that you do not have hard edges where you do not want them, and you have to work quite wet, but not too much, because if you work with too much water, the paint will dry very lighter. So you have to have lots of pigments and quite lots of water in order to have soft edges where you want it and have time to work those edges. But if you see that your color is starting to dry very lighter than you want to, you can always put more colors during this wet stage. It's not a big deal. You will not have flowers everywhere. You have to be a little bit mindful of how much water you have on your brush, but it's really doable and quite easy. And in order to blur a little bit the edges of the flowers, I'm also adding a little bit of lavender. on the side of the flowers, and it will merge into the darker color and make a gradient very easily, and you will have soft edges that way. The darker color I've used to create this dark background is a mix of Indent blue and Lunar blue. I didn't want to use just Indent blue because I wanted to be a little bit more muted and more like a night sky in that way. So Lunar blue is a perfect mix, and Lunar blue is also a very granulating color, so it's quite unify the painting with my granulating violet I'm using for the flowers. And I also use Indent blue in the greens, so that there is also a link between this dark background and the foliage I made, so everything is linked together and flow quite nicely. At the beginning of a watercolor painting, and especially if you paint very loosely like I am, there is always a stage there where you cannot really see the subject. It's very abstract, but right now I think you can see a little bit more the flower and where I'm going. At this stage, the flower are a little bit more defined, and now I just have to work on some details and on the greenery. So now I'm starting to paint the foliage, and I'm using my very trusty dagger brush for that. It's a very handy tool for painting foliage, and it's fun also to paint with this brush, as it makes such random marks and beautiful calligraphic marks. If you want to know more about this brush, I've made a video about it, and the link for this video will be also in the information box on the right top corner. So for the foliage, I'm using, as I say, Indent blue and Quinacridone gold to have this muted green. I prefer to have a little bit more muted green than my previous painting, so that the violet will pop a little bit more, as it's a brighter and a more vivid color. And in order for you to recognize asters, I'm trying to get a lot of spike in the greenery and in the foliage, because it's a plant that have a lot of foliage and a lot of tiny little leaves, so having a lot of spikes in every place will make it more looking realistic in a way. Of course, my foliage need a second layer to be very more realistic than it is right now, and I need to add a little bit more contrast into this foliage, so that we have a dark layer under the flowers and a dark layer on top of the flowers, so they will pop a little bit more. And working with a little bit more contrasty colors is always a good idea and will make your painting more alive. For the last touches of this second layer, I'm just adding little details on the petals of the flowers so that they are more recognizable. And now let's talk about supplies. For the brushes, I use an Escoda Aquario number 18 and a Rosemary Co Serie 39 half an inch, and a little Raphaël Petit Gris 803 number 2. For the color, I'm using Indent blue, Aussie red gold, Quinacridone gold, Lunar blue, Lavender, and Cobalt violet. And my paper is Canson héritage in hot pressed. For the last part of my watercolor painting, I will add a little bit more details in the foliage, as I say earlier, so adding a lot of dark areas so that the contrast is a little bit stronger with the flower, and still having this spiky line so that it make the foliage resemble a little bit more to a real aster foliage. So my painting today is very, very different from my painting 2 years ago, and it reflects a lot of my progress in watercolor, and I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. And the differences are quite strong. First with the colors, the foliage colors I used 2 years ago was a little bit too bright and not very natural, and today it's a little bit more natural, and there is so much flowers and foliage on my paper that we have the feeling of a real bush of asters that it wasn't the case 2 years ago. And to finish this video, I would like to take a little bit of time to thank you all for following me and for being there since 2 years. I hit 2,000 subscribers, and I'm very happy with it. And I have the opportunity to make a lot of progress in watercolors and sharing my passion, of course. So thank you. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you like it, and please tell me what you think in the comments. See you soon.